5th to March 5th. He played in 5 tournaments. First one he missed the cut. The next one he tied for 4th. That's right, tied for 4th. And then after that he tied for 2nd, and then he missed a cut. And then here last week at Doral, he won the tournament. And a nice new Cadillac. It was sponsored by Cadillac, so he won a nice new Cadillac vehicle too. But that's pretty good. 5 tournaments, you had a 4th place, a 2nd place, and a 1st place finish. Heading up into Masters season here, just about a month away. I believe April 15th or so is when that starts. But a lot of people are picking him as one of the favorites now to contend for the Masters tournament, and that is not unfounded. He's got past success, and he's been recently hot since he's come back. The only thing that is frustrating for the PGA is they have to be a little slow on pushing his redemption story, his feel-good story of comeback, what have you. Wait and see a little bit and make sure that he stays on the straight and narrow and doesn't have any sort of future problems or issues that allow him, or force him, I should say, to take more time off from the game. But again, that's all speculation, and I won't get into any of that. But he is a hot golfer who, if he's out on the course and has his stuff together in between his ears, he's as tough to beat as anybody. So I would consider him a top 5, top 10 favorite for the Masters tournament as of right now. Again, a lot can happen in a month, month and a half. But if he keeps playing the way he has been playing, he will definitely contend. All right. Well, that wraps up our second quickie of the evening. So I believe you have waited long enough. Let's give you the meat. Now, for the meat of tonight's show, let's face it, there was only one choice. More football. Because, again, there was so much football action going on yesterday. Like I said, it became my favorite day of the sports year calendar yesterday. It really did. That's how much I enjoyed watching all the player movement. But like I said, the biggest of all the newses and surprises yesterday, that's right, I said newses, was a couple trades that were made involving some fairly high-profile players. And people have said over the last several years that trades were fairly dead in the NFL, and we have proven that has been proven very wrong as of yesterday. But we went over the Foles for Bradford trade. Eagles traded quarterback Nick Foles and a few draft picks that weren't better than the Eagles draft picks, by the way, to the Eagles. To the St. Louis Rams, to the St. Louis Rams, who traded away a few draft picks and Sam Bradford and his $13 million contract. But the first trade that came in and blew everybody away was the New Orleans Saints trading all-world tight end Jimmy Graham to the should-have-been Super Bowl champion, back-to-back Super Bowl champion, Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks get Jimmy Graham and a 4th-round draft pick, and the Saints get center Max Unger, who, by the way, is a Pro Bowler and just barely entering the prime of his career, and their 1st-round draft pick, which is the 31st overall pick in this upcoming 2015 NFL Draft. Now, honestly, to me, both teams won on this trade. That is assuming that Jimmy Graham can return to similar form prior to what he showed us all last season, where he was very underproductive, especially for the big $40 million contract that the Saints had just given him. But we all know that Russell Wilson has not had any scary weapons of any kind to throw to here in his Seattle Seahawks career. And having a tight end that can do the things that Jimmy Graham can do and has done in the past would be an upgrade of catastrophic proportions, immeasurable. Russell Wilson will be one of the happiest people in the world if Jimmy Graham can return to previous production this upcoming season as a member of the Seattle Seahawks. However, from the New Orleans side, there are a lot of people crying, going, what are the Saints thinking? How could they trade away Jimmy Graham? He's the best or second best tight end in all of football. Well, the Saints got a lot for him. They got a Pro Bowl center who can be the franchise Pro Bowl perennial center for the next 5 to 10 years. And they got a first-round draft pick, albeit it's the 31st in the first round, so it's almost a top second-round pick, but still, they got a first-round draft pick in this upcoming draft to go along with it. Now, that leaves the New Orleans Saints in this upcoming draft currently sitting at both 13th and 31st. Now, if you've been following the NFL draft prospects at all, or if you happen to be a Minnesota Gopher fan, hey Gophers, you would know then that there's one elite level tight end in this upcoming draft, and he could go anywhere from between 5 and 40. Tight ends are really tough to predict where they're going to go, and it's very likely that he would drop at least out of the top 10, not be taken in the top 10 of the draft. I haven't seen any mock draft where he goes in the top 10. But somewhere between 10 and 35, we'd say, probably 15 and 35 is where he's expected to go. But Max Williams of the Gophers is an elite tight end and the only elite tight end in this upcoming draft. So it only makes sense that the Saints, now that they have 2 first-round picks, currently at least, are able to use at least one of those to acquire Max Williams in the first round of the draft. And that should take care of their tight end need for the most part. I'm not saying he's going to be as much of an offensive threat initially or ever as Jimmy Graham, but he definitely has the potential to be a more well-rounded, complete tight end, especially in the run-blocking game, than Jimmy Graham ever was. Now, it would be my guess that if that is their target, as they watch the draft board play out, that they will trade down from their number 13 pick, stockpile even more picks, and then if, let's say, they trade down to 20 or whatever with that from that 13th pick, that is where they'll probably look to take Max Williams. Or they can hope that he falls to them at 31, or maybe they use the 31st pick and a couple other ones to trade up in the first round to get Max Williams and shoot for someone else with their 13th pick. But either way, look for the New Orleans Saints to leave this upcoming NFL draft with Max Williams, tight end from the Minnesota Golden Gophers, on their roster one way or another. Whether they pick him where they're currently sitting or whether they trade somewhere to get him, they will be picking that guy in the draft. So a huge trade there. Another trade affecting Vikings fans at least. Well, this would be the first one affecting Vikings fans, I guess, but 2 trades, I should say, affecting Vikings fans. The first of which, the Baltimore Ravens traded away perennial Pro Bowl defensive tackle Halati Ngata to the Detroit Lions for a 4th and 5th round pick. Don't get too worried about it, although Halati Ngata is a potential Hall of Famer and still in the prime of his career. He actually had one of his most productive seasons ever last year. The Detroit Lions are losing both Ndamukong Suh and Nick Fairley at defensive tackle, so Halati Ngata is just one stud trying to replace 2 studs, and that doesn't quite add up, if you ask me. But a very good move, very, very good move for the Detroit Lions. And then the Chicago Bears, throw this in there, Bears, boy, they're one of the top 5 worst off seasons, I believe, so far. Not the top. That would be probably Philadelphia, followed by San Francisco. Man, theirs has been awful too. But the Bears traded away Brandon Marshall to the New York Jets for a 5th round draft pick. Thank you, Chicago. Definitely an improvement for the Jets. Don't know if it'll make any difference. They still don't have a quarterback yet, but we'll see what happens there. But definitely a good move for the Jets, assuming Brandon Marshall isn't a head case there and is willing to work. Now back to the Lions and their trade for Halati Ngata of the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore Ravens had to trade him away. They just couldn't afford him anymore. So that was their thinking. And then for the Detroit Lions, they're losing both defensive tackles, Nick Fairley and Ndamukong Suh. I believe Fairley is still on the market yet, one of the top defensive tackles who is still left the top defensive tackle overall would have been Ndamukong Suh, and he was quick to sign his mega contract with the Miami Dolphins. So he will be taking his talents to South Beach for the next several seasons. It's a 5-year deal or 6-year deal, I believe. But I do know that it's worth $116 million, and it did make him the highest paid defensive player of all time, surpassing J.J. Watt, who achieved that same title last offseason. So the Dolphins landed the biggest fish, literally, and maybe metaphorically, debatably, in the free agency pond. Still plenty more free agent activity to get to yet on the show tonight. Just a reminder, you're listening to Balls Deep Sports Talk with your host Scotty Ball here on Northern Lights Radio at WNLMradio.com. All right, other football news. Houston Texans signed quarterbacks Ryan Mallett and Brian Hoyer, so they will be the two guys battling to be the starting quarterback in Houston next season. Ugh, that does not bode well for the Houston Texans at all. Never know. Maybe Ryan Mallett will finally turn it on. He's looked okay in the past. Hasn't been able to stay healthy, though, here in the NFL when he's been called upon. Jeremy Maclin of the Eagles expected to, like I said, go to Kansas City and rejoin Andy Reid. Julius Thomas, who I was fortunate enough to have on one of my fantasy teams for a while last year at least, he is going to the Jacksonville Jaguars for 5 years, $46 million. So Orange Julius went and got his money down in Jacksonville, and he won't be contending for any championships anytime soon. As I mentioned earlier, Darrelle Revis went back to the New York Jets for a 5-year, $70 million deal. Former 49ers guard Mike Iupati, at least I think that's how you say it, Iupati, I don't know. Mike I will say. No, Mike Iupati from 49ers, best guard in free agency, who I was hoping the Vikings would get, ended up going to Arizona for $40 million. So Arizona, big upgrade there. Let's see. They also got linebacker Lamar Woodley. The San Francisco 49ers got wide receiver Torrey Smith, formerly of the Baltimore Ravens, for 5 years, $40 million. I like that move for the Niners. Not so much for Torrey. Outside the money, obviously. Chicago Bears are getting defensive end / linebacker Pernell McPhee. Good luck. Nothing against McPhee. I don't see anything for the Bears working out anytime soon. Oh, yeah. They also announced, the Bears, by the way, speaking of the Bears, announced that Cutler is expected to be their starting quarterback next season. Yep. Love that if you're a Vikings fan, as I am. Let's see what else we got. Yes, Andre Johnson and Frank Gore and Trent Cole all signing with the Indianapolis Colts. Cleveland Browns making a huge move to upgrade their pathetic wide receiver core and sign Brian Hartline to a 2-year, $6 million contract. Sorry, I couldn't keep a straight face on that one. Yep, great move, Cleveland. All right. Anyway, let's see. Owen Daniels, tight end, signing with the Denver Broncos for 3 years, replacing Julius Thomas. Along with, they signed Virgil Green, tight end as well. Darnell Dockett, defensive tackle, formerly of the Cardinals, going to the San Francisco 49ers. So they made a couple decent moves, but mostly losing guys. Safety Tyvon Branch went to Kansas City. Wide receiver Harry Douglas leaving Atlanta Falcons for Tennessee Titans. Cleveland also signed Josh McCown to a 3-year contract as their quarterback. Yep, Cleveland's in that top 5 worst off seasons too, I gotta say. Percy Harvin was let go by the Jets. He is still a free agent. Possible destinations for him are the Patriots. A couple other teams are interested, but I think he's got his last shot. He's been let go of 3 teams here in the last couple years, and I think if he fails a 4th team, that should be it for him in the league, but we'll have to wait and see. Michael Orr, the subject of the movie The Blind Side, if you happen to see that, he went to Carolina to block for Cam Newton. Good move for the Panthers. He's been a little underproductive the last couple of years, but still an upgrade and a good move for the Panthers. And A.J. Hawk, formerly of the Packers, linebacker, signed with Cincinnati. Cincinnati re-signed a lot of their guys, including guard Clint Bowling, who I was also hoping